My name is Rafael Cruz. I really thank you for being here. And I want to give you a rundown of what you expect to hear tonight. We want to talk about bench pressing to impress. And the way you get to do that over time is where you um, do the fundamentals. And I'm going to give you 5 tips, fundamentals. First tip is how to set up your equipment. Tip number 2 is how to bench press correctly. Uh, Tip number 3 is getting the most out of your workout. Tip number 4 are the general rules of what is too much weight for training. So those 3 and 4 kind of like go hand in hand. And tip number 5 is to never give up. You know, if you have a training objective, if you have a, um, let's say a max in mind, you definitely want to just stay the course and troubleshoot your plateaus, troubleshoot your injuries, and so on. And we're going to be breaking that down. So if you stick towards the end, you're going to get the whole complete works on what to do for benching. Now that you have heard that, I want to tell you something. If you like this kind of talk, if you love strength training, or you just feel like you need to change it up and get stronger, I want to tell you something. Please support this Instagram page and Facebook page at Miami Strength. Facebook at Miami Strength. We also have our YouTube channel, which we are streaming right now. People should be watching there and maybe commenting. Go to our YouTube. Go to YouTube. Search Miami Strength Club and support our channel. People just like you, looking for answers, just like you, want to get to these messages. And the more support you give us, the more likes, the more shares, the more our channel is going to grow, the more this information is going to get to people just like us who love strength training. So without further ado, let's get into uh, a few more of the breakdown. I guess one question you wanna ask yourself is, why do you want to bench more? So let's talk about the benefits of bench. Definitely, when it comes to a good physique, we're talking about aesthetics. When it comes to a good physique, a well-developed chest, in combination with shoulders and triceps, which are the muscle groups that you work when you are doing bench. All kinds of bench variations are going to work those 3 muscle groups. When it comes to aesthetics and the way you look, it just looks good. It's appealing. I'm not making that up, guys and girls. Broad shoulders with somewhat developed arms and a nice pec. Good pec development, good firm chest muscles. It's really appealing, and maybe you are into that, into some spectrum. Maybe you want a huge muscle development in your chest. Maybe you want something moderate. That's all good. Let me see something about the comments here on Instagram, because oh, excellent. I can see, guys, just in Instagram, I have sometimes some technical issues. If you hear me okay on Instagram, just hit okay. I'm gonna put the mainstream of Instagram on the on also on YouTube, so you guys on YouTube can see the Instagram feed. So I see it. That's pretty cool. If you see this video with some sort of lag, please send me a text. I want to, before I keep going, I want to see if there's anything on the tweaks that I can do here technically, so that you guys can get the best experience out of this. So once again, write me a yes or a sounds good, looks good kind of thing. I'm going to go to the Instagram, and then we're going to go with tip number 1. Your tip number 1 is how to set up your equipment correctly. Let's go into that. So, number 1, for bench press, the nature of bench press is that you need a barbell, and you might need a um, dumbbells if you don't have access to a barbell. But let's just take the traditional approach, or the conventional approach of calling the bench press an exercise that you do with a barbell, because that's what we're here to do at Miami Strength Club. Thank you for your feedback, the technical feedback. I appreciate that. So, bench pressing with a barbell. The first thing you want to do is set up the rack. The space that you're going to be working on, the space that you're going to be benching on, needs to be safe. Just check it out, scan it. Do a little bit of due diligence to look around and make sure that you are going to be benching on a spot that is appropriate for benching. Do not choose the squat rack. Don't try to do a weird, you know, viral Instagram video style of exercise, and you go to the I don't know, abdominal bench and try to set up, a barbell there, do some bench stuff. That in the long run is going to probably be something that is not effective, or is just less safe than you deserve. Um, so check the rack. Use an appropriate rack. Now, the hooks. We're talking about the hooks right here. The hooks where you put the barbell across need to be at the right height, so that when you put the barbell, your arms are almost fully extended, but your elbows are slightly bent. That little bit of extension you can do with your elbows is going to allow you to rack and unrack your elbows safely. You need to think about that when you put the height of the barbell, and you have those J cups, or the hooks, as most people call it. So that's about that. You want to set the bench right in the middle of the benching area, or the squat area. I've seen a lot of people just kind of neglect this, and then they're benching and something just goes, you know, almost literally sideways. You try to unrack the bar, and then the bar just comes out in a funky motion, maybe in one side first and then the other. Same thing happens when you are trying to rack. Maybe the bar hits the hook first on one side versus the other. Things like that can be avoided if you actually set up the bench right in the center of the rack. And that's important. Some little details like that are going to, in the long term, be exactly what you need. So that's for the bench. Your barbell, depending on what kind of bench press style or variation you're going to do, you're going to need the appropriate barbell. Most people, me included, we train with 45 pound barbells, or the equivalent of 33-pound or 35-pound barbells. Excuse me. That's what most people works on, and that's fine. If you are more of a beginner, or you're coming from a rehab or an injury or something like that, you might need a lighter barbell, up to or as low as 15 pounds or something like that, just to get you going, to get you started. Um, when you actually do have the barbell, just place it over the hook, and that's going to be fine. Um, let's talk about setup. And part of the setup is not only the equipment, but what kind of gear you use. Some people use elbow sleeves or wraps. Wrist wraps are also recommended. Um, they provide a level of stability for your joints that is very welcome. Some people don't like it, or some people don't see the need for it, but it's definitely something that is appropriate, especially when you take the vision of training for life or for long term. Strength training is something that you can do for a long time. It will take probably more than you anticipate to have an impressive bench press. And that's what we're talking about tonight, guys. We're talking about an impressive bench press, and we're talking about tip number one. Um, and also, something that has to do with the setup, it's the spotter. If you have a workout body, um, just make sure that the person, you guys have to talk over as to what is appropriate for you, when the spotter should touch the bar, when the spotter shouldn't touch the bar. And we're going to get some more details when we talk about safety. But as part of the equipment setup, make sure that there's room behind the lifter, some space just right there, on top, or just above or adjacent to the lifter's head, so that the spotter doesn't have to be walking over you, almost like on a horsey Charlie straddle style. That's not pleasant. I don't have any stories of that kind, but I assure you that's not pleasant. Guys, it is exactly 8:10, and we are going into tip number two. Tip number two has to do with how to bench correctly. How to bench correctly. Let's define correctly before we keep going, because good. Hey, that was a good rep. Excellent. Do one more like that. Is that correctly? Uh, Correctly means when you have done the equipment setup, and then you now think about the movement. You have to think about the movement being a skill, not just something that happens randomly. So for you to develop a skill and to treat the bench press as a skill, let's talk about those things. So it has to do with the basic aspect of your body positioning and how your joints are moving under the loaded bar. That's what it means by bench pressing correctly. Of course, logically, you have to lay down on the bench, and you want to do that firmly. I've seen people that sort of like swayed sideways, or I see them not really feel or set up themselves stable on the bench. You want to make sure that your body is in good contact with the bench, that the gear or the shirt that you're wearing, the t-shirt, the training, whatever you're training with, tank top, t-shirt, hoodies, that is something that really can have good contact surface with the bench and the bench material, whatever the bench is made out of. Some people just like slide. They bring something made out of dry sweat, some fancy, really nice looking fabric, but then it turns out not to be the most uh, efficient fabric to work on the particular bench that you're working. So there is a workaround with that. Some people take the bands, resistant bands, and you sort of like wrap them around the bench, and that now has a layer of something that's very grippy, something that won't slide, and that's what you need. You can't slide, otherwise you're going to lose the stability that you're trying to create. So that's about laying down. Now, once you lay down and you're not sliding, you feel like you're stable there, that your body's not going to shift and lose the position that you're trying to get into. Now you set up your grip. You set up your grip. Let me show this one time, two times, three times, and as many times as I can say it, so that I drive the point into your consciousness. Gripping the bar without thumbs is a bad idea. Gripping the bar without thumbs is a bad idea. You always want to use your thumbs and wrap the bar around. That's called a double overhand grip. If the bar, for some particular reason, it could be sweat, it could be a cramp, it could be that you're sort of like fainting or fading out in your strength, something bizarre, something. If the thumb is not there, if the thumb is not there, the bar is going to roll out of your hand, and there's nothing to catch it other than the safety equipment that you've previously set up. And we're going to talk about safety very soon. People that press, bench press, or even all kinds of presses, overhead, flat bench, anything that press without the thumb, are exposing themselves to a potential injury, and we don't want that. So that's the grip. Once you grip, just like we talked about before, you want to make sure that the bar is not too high where you have to actually get out of the position you set up. You want to have the elbows slightly bent so that you can push the bar to arms in full extension, and then you bring the bar to the middle of the chest. Once you actually start benching, bringing the bar down, that's called the descend. You want to sustain a bar path. The bar path means that the barbell is moving in space in the same manner in every rep. Now, that's assuming that you're doing the correct motion, not the incorrect motion. So typically, the barbell touches just in a range at the bottom of the sternum. For some people, that's essentially the highest point of their chest, or where the chest has most girth or more circumference, the highest circumference of your chest. And there is a range there depending on how your arms are built, your forearms, and so on. But that excuse me, I apologize about that. That is the range where you're going to touch, just below at the bottom of the sternum. When you start moving, you ought to maintain stability. So you need to put your feet firmly flat, at least conventionally. That's the conventional setup. You put your feet flat so that you can push the ground away. That's called leg drive in some circles. Here in Miami Strength Club, we call it leg drive for the bench press. And you want to arch your back. That's going to give you a very pronounced chest, and it's going to make your lower back and part of the middle of your back peel off the bench. You're going to look like a banana bridging on the bench, and that's appropriate. In the future, I think we might do something practical as a video or maybe as a live feed, who knows, but I definitely want to give more of a tutorial on that. If you lose the banana shape, if you lose the arch, the angles, the relative angles of your shoulders are going to take you away from the optimal position to do bench. And then your bench is not going to be impressive. And that's the point. Getting into an arch is going to do primarily two things. It's going to elevate your chest. So now it very slightly shortens the range of motion, but it also puts you into a very optimal position to use a lot of the muscle in the muscle group, a lot of the muscle in the chest complex. And that's important because that's what you need to do. You want to get stronger and grow your muscles. And that's really important for force production. What you're trying to do to get bigger and to be stronger is to produce more force, period. So let's go now we are still in tip number 2 and talking about maintaining the stability. Now you're benching. Now the bar is going up and down. You have the appropriate weight, and you are almost completing with the workout, but you may feel a little bit shaky. You need to create a mental checklist. You need to create a mental checklist of everything that we've gone through. Actually, I'm going to, when I publish this video, in the description, I'm going to put a link maybe on the bio or something, and YouTube in the description, what I'm looking at. I want to give you my notes. I'm going to give you my notes so you can actually look at this again as many times as you need to, and get a good checklist of what you need to do. But go through the checklist in your mind before you do your last set. When you start to get tired, is the time to start paying attention to your technique, because you could, but you don't want to do that. You could do things differently in every set and then in every rep. But that's exactly what you don't want to do, because then why are we listening to all of this if you're going to do something different every time? Just for the logic of it. So that's how you maintain stability. You go through the checklist. You actually perform everything that you want. To complete a good workout, you might need spotting, or you might need to spot someone. Let's go there again, because many training sessions are messed up royally, not by you, but by the person who spots you. Step number one written law of spotting: If the barbell has not stopped moving, or if the barbell has not moving down, and I'm going to describe that. If I'm doing a bench and the barbell is slowing down, I'm getting tired, I'm getting exhausted, but the barbell continues to move with some speed up, meaning that slowly, but the lifter is going to complete that rep. The spotter should not touch that bar. The spotter should not lean over the lifter to be a part of the lift. The spotter should not be a part of the lift of that repetition unless the barbell starts going down outside of control. You understand? Spotters, spotters, you mean well. You think you're doing the right thing, but when it comes to strength training, spotters do not touch the barbell. Maybe in other technical techniques of working, a spotter want to get you to do a force rep, and you get assistance. And in that context, typically in bodybuilding, it's like straight up hypertrophic training for whatever that is, because hypertrophy is a big spectrum. Excuse me. But spotters, please do not touch the barbell. If you're doing strength training, do not touch that barbell. It's be appreciated. That's how you get, you know, a an Amazon gift card the day of your birthday, because you stay away from your friend's lift. You don't fuck it up. Excuse my language, but it's sometimes it's infuriating when you're so close to get that rep, and your best friend with all the good intentions just comes in and steal it from you. And in the meanwhile, his or her saddle is all over your face at the same time. Um, for that matter, the spotter is always going to use a mixed grip. Always use a mixed grip, because the bar can roll out if you use a double overhand grip and it rolls out that way. It's on the lifter's face. If it's heavy, but you mix it, the rotation is going to cancel. And now you have a nice chance of actually doing the spotter function. Moving on. Tip number 3, getting the most out of your workout. The obvious question is, am I getting it? Are you getting the most out of your bench pressing sessions? I'm going to put my finger on the fire and say, most likely you are not, for 2 reasons. Most people lift either too heavy, that is the next, we're going to talk about heavy, but most people lift too heavy, or too light, or too little. That is my experience with getting, just starting to work with people. 3 sets of 10 might not be heavy enough. Maybe if you are just starting, that's fine. Um, Typically, 3 to 5 sets of 5 for working sets will do the trick. Now, when you're working, let's say, on a linear progression style of program, that means that you're increasing weight periodically, sometimes every workout or every time you do that exercise. You actually get to challenge. You get very challenged with sets of 5, sometimes sets of 4, depending on your progression increase, your progression overload. So I would say that you might be working too little. Get the grind. You have to work through the grind. You have to make sense that, let's put it this way. Soreness is not a optimal proxy, probably not even a good proxy for judging the efficacy of your workout. Some people get more sore than others, and that doesn't mean they both trained optimally. What you really want to talk about is your ability to recover from the how much work you did. So it might take you a few workout sessions if you're training on your own. If you have no guidance, it might take you a few workout sessions for you to get to your baseline, and you say like, okay, you know what, from now on, this is where I will increase from, because you have understood how you recover. And typically, when you recover from the previous bench session, you come back to the gym, and five, four times out of 5, you're going to feel stronger. There might be one of those days where your body's not fully recovered, and you might feel like, you know what, this might not be. You can imagine that this might not be the greatest bench workout that I'm going to do, but you can push, you still can push through your weights, and that has to do with your ability to recover. Um, Essentially, you ought to be able to come back on the on a few sessions, at the very least on 2 or 3 sessions. And if you're missing reps, if you're failing at completing sets, you get to complete the set. Important, because you get, and you know, thinking and starting to believe that your training is complete at that time. But also, you don't want to continue to add weight uh, indiscriminately, or almost in a random way or arbitrarily. You don't want to do that either. So almost every session, at some point every other session, you will be increasing the weight, and that's pretty much the nature of a linear increase type of program. That means linear means when you choose a amount of weight, an amount of reps, an amount of set, and you typically do not change the sets or the weight. You only